2009 Informational Committee meeting. Today we have Joy McCracken, and I didn't catch your partner's name. Karen Rothman? Kara? Tara here from, and they're going to give us a presentation on the Southern Hills market needs analysis and housing demand analysis. But first of all, I'd like to do roll call if we could, Katie.
Ron Weifenbach, Patty Martinson,
Here.
Sam Quaker, Deb Hadcock, Bill Waugh, Karen Gunderson Olson,
Here.
Ron Kroger, Lloyd LaCroix,
Here.
Aaron Costello, Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Katie. I did get some information. Malcolm will be a little bit late, and we had a couple phone calls from the council members. One's sick, Mr. Waugh's sick, and the others were previously tied up, so we'll get the information to them. But Joy, if you wanted to go ahead and start out, we'll walk you into our meeting. And
Just stand over here if you don't mind.
yep.
Just to give you a little bit of background is about market analysis.
Yeah.
Oh, but I got to. We saved the audio for this.
And it's on record, so you need to identify yourself and where you're from and all that good stuff.
Okay, my name is Joy McCracken, and I'm with Dakota Land Trust. And I'm here today to talk about the housing market analysis. And this was completed with funding that came from Black Hills Vision, and it included Pennington County, Custer County, and Fall River County. And there's also been, previously there was another market study that was done for the Northern Black Hills. So we basically have all of the Black Hills now done. And we do have a full hard copy of all of the study, and included with a CD-ROM that we'll give to the mayor, so you all will have access to it. It is also on our website, dakotalandtrust.org. So the full study is on there too for your access. But today we'll go ahead and Tara has been so kind to just go through and just pull out the information that was pertinent to Rapid City. So we'll just go through Rapid City stuff today. Interrupt at any time with questions. I want to make sure you understand it. And Katie, if any of the others ever wanted to sit down to a one-on-one and have questions, I'm more than happy to do that. Okay? So we'll get started. So the market analysis starts with the community observations. That's just what the consultant saw as they started through this market analysis, and he started in the latter part of the latter part of 2008, and it was completed in June of 2009. So this is just observations of the community, the first several pages. So then we get back to the pertinent data. Got a lot of pictures in here too. So the data actually starts, there's just one whole section of observations, and then the next section is on the demographic profile.
So that's like page 31, the backside, page 30?
Page 31.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll start through this, and so you'll see where all three counties are included. Now, what we asked them to do was to look at specific communities in Pennington County: Box Elder, Hill City, New Underwood, Rapid City, and Wall, and then the balance of the county as well. So you'll see where Rapid City has their own line item, and then there's the balance of the county. And the balance of the county doesn't include any really communities. It's just the residents living within the county. So you can see it starts with the population trends. And in 1980, Rapid City had a population of 46,492. And 2009, when the study was completed, it was at 66,062. They are projecting in 2019 to have a population of 71,806. Now, that doesn't include anything that might happen in the future through annexation or anything like that, obviously. Okay, so then on the next page, they talk about trends, and here they're just going from 2001 to 2007. So you can see what the trends have been in the last, during that time period. In 2001, it was the population was 60,089, and in 2007, it was 63,997. Okay, on the next page, they talk about household characteristics. So it talks about, in 2009, the population is 66,062. There was 2,931 units in multifamily. So these, they call them group quarters, which means it was multifamily. Yeah.
Joey, we do have, Ms. Olson has a question.
Yes.
Okay. My question, Joy, would be, when you look at that 60, the numbers that you were just talking about, there's a difference of about 3,000 people between the persons in the households and the actual population of the city. So where do you calculate that those 3,000 people are? Where are those people? Because you're saying persons in households. Why isn't it the same as the population? So I'm assuming those are people who are not in households. So where are they and what are they? Are those people in jail?
You have 2,931 in group quarters.
And so that takes care of that. So that includes people in jail?
You know,
No?
I would have to ask, but I'm going to say that they're talking about those people are, and that doesn't, I was going to say multifamily units, but that's not enough, right?
Well, I was
You
just
have more
wondering.
people than that living in is there more than 3,000 people living in multifamily units? I would guess so. And, you know, it's a very good question, and I will find out from the author of exactly where those people are living, if they're talking jail or if they're talking the mission, and I'm sure the mission is included in there, but that's too much.
Is that right? So that would be your guess? Is it?
That'd be my guess.
Okay.
But
All right,
I
thank
will
you.
confirm that, and we will get your email information and get that question back to you
Okay,
guys.
thanks.
Okay, but a very good question. So we have total household units then is 28,437, and an average of 2.22 persons per household.
So I have another question.
Yes,
I'm just trying to understand your information.
that's fine.
Okay. So when you say households, what does that mean? Is that a place, or is that a group of people who live in some place, or describe that a little better so I understand when you say households, what are you talking about?
That would be the number of people in one housing unit.
So it could be an apartment or
It could be an
or
apartment, it could
house
be
or
a house, it could be assisted living, it could be,
So in assisted living, you'd have all 90 people or whatever that would be that would be a single household?
when they say per unit, I would assume that they are talking about number of households, number of people per unit. And so if you have assisted living and you've got 2 people per unit, they're gonna count that, 2 people living in that unit, they're gonna count that as a household.
Okay, so they don't have to have a house. What you're
No.
trying to describe is a group of people who do something, but
Live in the same unit together.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mhm.
On the numbers, the 63,997, is that the number that you were referring to, or that it did come across to match the 66,062? Is that correct? Yeah, if you go, you kind of, the one in between there, if you go back a page, the numbers do match. If you go to Rapid City, in 2009,
Yeah.
here's where they get the 66,062. Because there's through 1990 to
Tara?
2019.
Darren, could you speak in the microphone?
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
Introduce yourself.
I say I'm Tara Broadcorp with Dakota Land Trust, and in reference to the previous question, the 66,062 population, if you go back a page to the table 1, estimated population trends and projections, it does match with the 2009. Because the date range, if you look at the top of the page, the date ranges are different.
I
'Cause
wasn't
on-
disputing the total
Okay.
number. I mean, I understand that total number.
Where the difference is.
I
and
was
that's
just
what
trying to understand when we're talking, I just didn't know in your business what a
In
house.
the overall.
Yeah, I mean, in your business, what a household means. Okay, thank you.
So did that get defined? I mean, it's people living within a unit. Then they don't have to be married people, they don't have to be related people even. So it's people living in, and it's all based from the census. The majority of this information is taken from the census. Okay, then on page 9, what we're talking about here is tender by household. So Rapid City 2009, again, we have the total households of 28,437. Owner occupied is 17,290, which is 60.8%. Renter is 11,147, which is 39.2%. And so you can see that the 60% home owner occupied is a little bit less than what the rest of the county looks like, and also less than what the statewide looks like. Statewide average is about 68% owner occupied. On the next page, we talk about household size. Out of the 28,437 households, there is 7,038 one-person households, 8,399 two-person households, 3,584 three-person households, 3,025 four-person households, 1,295 people, and 395 and 238. So you can see that over 50% of your total households are 1 or 2 people households. Yes.
You don't specify the type of household, 2 adults working there, 2 persons or adult and a child.
They do not distinguish between. Yeah, you're right. It could be mom and a child, or dad and a child, or it could be a married couple, or it could be an unrelated couple.
And again, Joy,
Mm-hmm.
so this is not a statistical analysis. This is, in other words, there is a real household represented in which there is 2 and 1.
Persons per
Yeah, in other
household.
words, they're not just dividing these up. There's actually some place where these people would be found.
Exactly.
Is that right, Barb? Okay, all right.
Mhm.
I just didn't know if you're just dividing things up or, okay,
No.
thank you, that's helpful.
Mhm.
Thank you, Karen.
So then on table 6, on page 12, it talks about incomes. So again, under Rapid City, in 1990, the total household income was, or the average household income was $25,740, and it moved up to $44,168 in 2009. And it's projected to move to $54,406 in 2019.
Now I have a question, Joy.
Yes.
So we're saying that this is the average, and we're averaging 2 people per household, so that'd be joint income, right?
Excuse me, I didn't.
On our averages, when you're saying we're averaging 2.22 per household on average,
Yes.
and this medium income, the 44 for 2009 is 44,168,
Yes.
and 2019 you projected 54,406. But would that be the combined? That'd be the combined income of the 2 people
Yes, when they
Okay.
talk household, they talk about all income
in the household.
in the household.
Okay, thank you.
And again, this is driven by the census. So, you know, it could be kind of a non-traditional household. It might not be a married couple. It might be a mother and working son or working daughter. And so when they do the census, that's all figured in as well. Table number 7 talks about per capita or per person. And so in Rapid City in 1990, it was 12,469. It moved up to 25,026. It's projected to move up to 32,000 in 2019. Table 10, travel time to work. Okay, there are 897 households that travel 9 minutes or less to work, and 15,589 traveling less than 19 minutes to work. 4,305 travel 20 to 29, 1,281 30 to 39, and it goes on up from there. So you can see that the majority of your households are traveling less than 20 minutes to work. So they're working in town. Okay, table 11 talks about the household profile. In now this is drawn from the census, so we'll go with the 2000. In the year 2000, there was, out of your total households, 15,632 was one unit or a single family home. There was 3,494 units that was in a complex of 2 to 9 units. And there was 4,126 households in complexes that had 10 or more units. And 1,875 in other, and they define other as including mobile homes, vans, RVs, boats, and etc.
Okay.
And so that's a total of 25,127. Okay, table 12 again is housing stock profile. What this is addressing is lack of complete plumbing. So 99.7% of your household units have complete plumbing. 0.3% lack complete plumbing. And their definition of complete plumbing doesn't mean it doesn't have plumbing, it just means that it's lacking complete plumbing. Housing stock profile on page 13. And this talks about the year that the home was built. And so under Rapid City, there was 4,742 units built from 2000 to present. And then it breaks it down from there, and so in 1999 to March of 2000, there was 537, 95 to 98, 1,633, 90 to 94, 13,099. So you can see how it moves on down. And in every instance, there's in that era of 70 to 79, everyone is higher during that time period, which I thought was always interesting. I'm not sure exactly what was going on during then, but it was good building years.
Joy,
Yes.
I heard you say you didn't know
Recognize
why that
panels.
happened in 70 and 79. Does that reflect a change in Ellsworth Air Force Base? Or would this be within the corporate limits?
This is within the corporate limits.
But the corporate limits, I'm just speculating. I wonder if you've speculated as to what it is. Is it associated with the build-out at Ellsworth, in which there were a lot of, there was housing built in, I don't know. You don't have it, you don't speculate as to why this happened. Okay, I won't ask you to speculate.
No, I didn't speculate.
Okay,
But as
go
we
ahead.
go through to community, it's true in every community, not just in Rapid City. It's almost true in every community in the Black Hills. So it just must have been a good time for the Black Hills, and I'm not really speculating why, but. Pardon me? Yes, yep, good point. Yep,
Thank you, Marcia.
yeah. Okay, table 14, housing stock vacancies. This is where they look at how much of your housing stock is sitting vacant. And before we start into this, the consultants tell us that it's healthy for a community to have 5 to 7% of their housing stock vacant. So when somebody moves into your community, they have choices. And so if somebody's looking at moving into your community and there is no housing choices, they may decide not to move into your community. So 5 to 7% is healthy. So what they're looking at here, under Rapid City, bottom half, we've got, again, total units of 29,000, and they broke it out between owner-occupied and rental properties. So if you look down kind of in the middle, they're saying that there is 4.4 vacancy. 2.7 was owner vacancy, and 7.2 was a renter vacancy. Now, this was done in June of '09, which is just a few months ago. But what I'm hearing recently, and Lloyd and I had conversation regarding this, that there's a lot more on the market now for sale than there was 6 or even 8 months ago. So the market is shifting, and so this may not hold true anymore. You know, when you do these studies, it's just a snapshot of where it was at that time, and that moves. And I'm going to guess, and I will speculate on this one, I'm going to speculate that there's more housing stock on the market today than there was in June. And rental is 7%, so if that stayed about the same, I would say you're pretty healthy where it comes to rentals. The adjusted vacancy factors, they take out of the equation all of these second homes and the homes that do sit vacant the majority of the year. So that changes the equation quite drastically. So you can see here that we had very little on the market for sale in June, 2.2%, and your vacancy factor dropped down to 2.2%. So moving on to to table 15. The estimated gross rents in Rapid City in 2000, it was 496, and in 2009, it was 578. The median household value was 89.7 in 2000, and 116,800 in 2009. That's the median, so that means there's 50% below and 50% above 116.8. And they're projecting that to go to 151 by 2019. And those of us working in the nonprofit world, trying to help families into home ownership, we know that 151 is out of the range of many of our workforce in our communities. So that's not a healthy situation for any of our communities in the Black Hills. So, and then we get into the next section, they talk about demand. So they take all this information, they look at where you're at, where you've come from, and then they project out what they think your housing demands are going to be between now and 2019. So under Rapid City, the target demand for home ownership is 3,555, and for rental it's 1,930, for a total unit demand of 5,485. And the estimated requirement to make that happen is $950 million. So they break that down a little bit further on the next page and talk about what income ranges we need to target. So in the home ownership, 360 of those units should be targeted toward our families that have a household income of 51 to 80%. And I believe that we also handed out the area median household. This is a study that's completed annually by HUD for every county. And you can see that for Pennington County, 100% of the median income for a family of 4, which is, you know, mom and dad and 2 children, and in some cases probably both of them are working, the median income is $57,400. So they're saying here on this study that 360 of these units should be targeted to families of less than 80. So they should target families that are making less than $45,920 annually. And 165 of the units should be targeted toward families at 81% to 125. So the rest, that's targeting families at 45,000 upward to about 62,000 then.
Joy, I got a question for you.
Yes?
You know, when we talk about this medium income, you know, you said 80% would make 45,900 for a family of 4.
4.
And we talk about working family housing. Maybe Barb could help me out on this. On an income of 45,000 total, 30% is what they expect you to pay for rent or to buy a house. So 30% of 45,000 would probably be what, $600 maybe, if I'm lucky? I don't know.
Should have brought my calculator along. 48. It actually, I think, would be, you know, closer to the 400 to 500 range.
That would be.
The total housing expense.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the house, in my eyes, would have to be more like around 45,000 to buy, or 50,000 to make it affordable.
In today's market, if you bought a $100,000 home at South Dakota Housing's rate at 4.75, plus taxes and insurance, you are probably talking in the 600, 650 range. Because
Okay.
your P&I would be right at that 500.
Okay,
And
so
then you
that-
got to add taxes and insurance on top of that.
Okay. Well, so it'd be 600 to 700 plus
Yeah.
taxes and insurance?
Yeah. And, no, that would include taxes
That
and
would-
insurance.
Taxes and
Yeah.
insurance.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. So I can see where your thought process is going there, is that we need a lot of homes in that 100 or below to meet some of our families that in our workforce.
Yes.
Right.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yep.
Okay.
And when we do our research, we can tell you that homes below 125 in the Black Hills are very, very scarce.
Yes.
Everything is above that.
Okay.
So it's very difficult for our families to buy homes.
Thank you, Joy.
Okay, so then the majority of those 555 units then is targeting families at 126% of the area median income and above. Okay, on the next page, it talks what type of housing, and for the home ownership, 1,515 should be single-family units. 160 is the patio, and 320 is townhouses, and 140 is duplexes.
Can you tell us the difference between those kinds of, describe what family is? I don't know what kind of house is. How many rooms or bedrooms or whatever you decide.
I'm sorry, Karen,
Could you describe what those, in other words, in a patio home, I don't know what that is. And I mean, I just like to hear your, I have some idea what it is, but I don't,
Yeah.
I'd like to hear your description of what that is as a unit of housing.
a patio home is similar to like a walkout basement type unit.
So how many rooms would it have? How many bedrooms is that?
You know, and that can vary. Usually they're smaller, but that's typical. That's not.
So it isn't the size when you say patio, it is,
No, it's not the size, it's the type.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so like a townhouse unit, a duplex unit, or single-family unit, I mean, they can have, 2 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms. I mean, it's.
Okay, so the townhouse would have one set of shared walls, a duplex would be
Yep.
something, but I still
Right.
don't. But a patio home, okay, you've answered my question. It isn't the size, it is just, so that's why I wanted to know what you thought that building looked like.
Right.
Okay.
But see, if you're gonna target, and the size is gonna be, will be determined by what target market you're gonna target. Because obviously, if you're targeting the lower income, or the lower income families at that 125 and below, the home is gonna be a lot smaller than if you're targeting the upper income.
Sure, okay, thanks.
And again, it's square footage, it's not maybe necessarily the number of bedrooms or anything like that, it's the square footage of the home, of the unit.
So again, when you're saying patio town duplex, you're talking about the style of home, not necessarily how much square footage or how many bathrooms and bedrooms it
Exactly,
has. Okay, thank you,
exactly.
that's helpful.
Yep. And that was also broken down by age sector, so that was for households between 18 and 54 years of age. And then if you're targeting the seniors at 55 and above, then that demographic changes, and so then you can see where the townhome units are much more popular with the upper end, or the older sector, than the younger sector. The younger sector wants all the family. They want the single-family detached home with the garage and the yard and everything, where the older sector wants the townhouse or the duplex where there's, well, this one was, the townhouse unit, where there's usually less maintenance and type going on.
Oh, thank you.
Does that make sense? Okay, so then we're talking, again, we're going to talk about age, population, and this is household area median income. 51 to 80% at age 55 and above. There's 114 families that's in the income bracket of 51 to 80%. 401 families that are in the age that are above 55 and in the income bracket of 81 to 125. And 905 families that are in the income bracket of 126 and above. And then it breaks it down into special populations as well. And so then you get back down to your 555 units that's projected. So they break it down by age and income for you. And then over on the very right, they're breaking it down into the workforce sector. So they're saying that there's another 1,130 units that need to be built to meet the workforce sector in that age and family and special population. So then on table 9C, then they talk about purchase prices. We just talked about this a little bit. To meet that target income of 51 to 80, they do need to stay below the 125 for a home. And again, they're saying that their demand is for a 1-bedroom. 35 units would be at 1 bedroom, 145 is 2 bedroom, and 180 units at 3 bedrooms to meet the target income of 51 to 80. And if you look at the target income of 81% to 125, the sales price would jump up to the 120 to 225,000. And again, there's 21 units at 1 bedroom, 410 at 2 bedroom, and 625 at 3+ bedrooms. And then you have the 126 and above, so the sales price goes up to 226,000 and up, and there's a demand for 12 1-bedroom units, 875 2-bedroom units, 1,243 3+ bedroom units. So that totals then your projection again of 3,555. And again, it breaks out workforce. So it talks about how many of these units need to fit that workforce of 55 to 125. Sales price of 95,000 to 225. 16 one-bedroom, 388 two-bedroom, 726 three-plus bedrooms. Okay, so then it goes into the executive summary is the last section, and that's just their summary, and it basically is the same information, just in a summary form, so I don't want it, in the interest of time, I won't go through that in detail with you. But Lloyd and I were having conversation before the meeting, and this last table that talked about the number of units needed for our workforce, and you know, the market has really changed in the last year or two, and I don't need to tell you guys that, you already know that. But the silver lining to all that is that contractors are now looking more at building for workforce and less so much on the upper end, because it's the upper end homes that are sitting on the market for periods of time. And the workforce houses are still selling, and they're still selling at a moderate rate. What we're seeing is our property values aren't going up as fast as they were, but they're still going up at a very modest rate.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Just want to take the time to thank you both for the presentation, and to remind everybody that this is the information that was shared. It was for 10 years projection. So when the numbers that we're talking about, it's for the whole 10 years. And I think you're right as far as the working families housing, you know, within the 100 to 125 range, I think's very popular right now, and the higher end ones are tough. So yeah, I do agree with you on that. Does anybody on the council have any questions? Karen Olson?
I'm assuming you have some ideas what we ought to do with this information.
It is used by developers that are projecting development to see what the demands are projected and what target areas are projected to hit. So, and they can take that information to their lenders, you know, today and give this to them as they projected. And, you know, and we all know that what happens immediately right around Rapid City affects Rapid City. So I only gave you Rapid City proper numbers. If you look at the county, you know, those numbers jump up as well. And so, but yeah, the developers are using it. We've already given it out to developers to use.
So do you see the city playing a role in this?
I think that the information that's important to the city is, we all know how important our workforce is, and I don't think the workforce housing has been met. We know it hasn't been met in past years. As I stated, it's starting to be met a little bit more now, but anytime that we can encourage a developer to build workforce housing, I think it would be to the city's benefit, to help the city grow. And because that's the target area that stabilizes your community, it stabilizes your workforce if they're into home ownership. There's many, many benefits to home ownership. You know, there's been study after study done on that also, but you know, it's been proven that kids are better kids in school that come from owner-occupied homes. There's less crime in neighborhoods. The people are more actively engaged in their community, engaged in their school. So there's so many benefits to home ownership that if the city could ever play a role in to encourage home ownership, it would definitely be to the city's advantage.
Yeah, I have a question.
I'll recognize Patty Martinson.
I noticed we have an assessment of the different neighborhoods in Rapid City.
Mhm.
Is there any kind of assessment as what kind of housing is more appropriate for particular neighborhoods, like a you should have more of this kind of housing in this area, more of that kind of housing in that area?
I don't believe this study broke it out neighborhood by neighborhood, but that would be very good information to know. And yep, yes,
So,
yep. But that'd be good information to know, and it also would be good information to know the trend, how the home ownership has gone. You know, did it go up in this neighborhood, or did it go down in this neighborhood? And if it's going down, what's happening in that neighborhood, and what could be done to bring back the home ownership to stabilize that neighborhood again, so it doesn't start declining.
thank you, Patty. Next, I'll recognize Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Joy, thank you, and Tara. To answer, I guess, a part of Karen's question, I think Joy is absolutely right to try to encourage building across all categories, but mainly that workforce housing. I think it might be easier now to do that with the economy, but this is from 2009 to 2019 looking at, and the economy is going to change a few times between now and then. I think as the economy gets better, there'll be less profit margins for builders to build in that category of workforce. So I think now is an education time more than ever for municipalities to get involved, to say that that's needed. As I talked about a couple years ago at budget hearings, it would be a shame in any city that you'd have public safety officials or city staff that couldn't afford the housing in their own communities because, one, it's not enough, or it's not being built at a pace that mirrors the need. The money is not there to do it. We have tried for the last couple years to think about how to strategically use TIFs in that regard, and there's no money to be made for the development community for the most part in there, and it becomes hard to do. So we are out trying to educate people as much as possible about the need, and then hopefully that education will still persist when the economy is better and people are making money again.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Malcolm. Now I'm going to chime in on some of what Patty was asking. When part of your study was that I enjoyed was you showed the travel time to and from work. That kind of tells you where your people are working, how close they are. From one side of town to the other, whether it's the hospital or I think there's a lot of more information that we could tie it all together.
Mm-hmm.
But I do appreciate your study, and I think it's very helpful, and we'll make sure that we get it to all the council members' boxes. If they'd like to sit down with you and go through that, we'll definitely set that up, Joy.
Okay.
And so I really appreciate you and Tara coming up and giving us the presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have a question from the audience. Miss Barb, I'll recognize Miss Barb Garcia.
It's not a question, but I would like to throw in and answer Karen's question of what role should the city have in that. And there are three main roles. One is that on the housing, what kind of housing should be built in neighborhoods? I think that was Patty's. It should actually be mixed. If there's only rental housing in an area, you need to put home ownership in there too. If you have all really tiny little houses, it wouldn't hurt to have a couple a little bit larger, so that you have a mixed neighborhoods and mixed families, and that's what makes a more blended, well-functioning neighborhood. So that's something that agencies should look at, is what is in that neighborhood and how we can diversify it and provide housing for all sizes of households, all needs of the households. The second thing is affordability, trying to help to maintain our affordability for the lower income families. For instance, a lot of people may look at the little tiny houses along Haynes Avenue and think, we should tear those down and build a bigger house. I'm here to say, no, we shouldn't tear those down and build a bigger house. Those little houses are filled with people who only need little houses, and they can only afford little houses. And if we get rid of all of that housing, we create an issue where we have many people looking at mobile homes, which are not necessarily a better option for them. They're harder to keep warm, they're harder to maintain, they deteriorate over time, as opposed to a stick-built house. So we want to maintain the housing stock in all of the different sizes, but that does require some effort on our part as a city to maintain that housing and make it affordable, because sometimes the repair work that's required, and that brings me to the third part, is the stock retention. How do we retain those houses? We have quite a bit of housing.
Hold on,
Yes.
Karen.
Stock. Housing stock, as in S-T-O-C-K, yeah. In maintaining that housing stock, for instance, we have many houses that the houses themselves aren't really bad, but the foundations are shot. I mean, and they're gonna cost anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000 to replace. But, and that's a role where maybe the city, through some of our grants, because you can't add that cost in a rehab and still have that house affordable to the low-income person. So that's one of the things we have to look at as a solution, is how do we help make up that difference in the gap of what it's going to cost to fix it. If the house itself is fine and it just needs a new foundation, then it's worth putting in the foundation, providing it as a grant so they don't have to pay that back immediately. We can still attach to it. But we have to figure out ways to help in some of those rehab costs to still maintain those houses. Occasionally it does require tearing it down, but it doesn't necessarily require building the largest house that can be put on that lot either. And in the past, there were many farm homes that have been encompassed into into our housing stock as we expanded our borders, that were, I think they started at 640 square feet many years ago. Then it was at 740, and then it was 800, and then it all of a sudden is 1,008, and now we're, building much larger houses. That we have many people, if you notice, the needs for the 1 bedrooms and the 2 bedrooms are out there at smaller costs to make them affordable. So the city does play a role and has a role in trying to help address some of those issues.
I'll recognize Karen Olson.
One of the things I heard you talking about, and thank you, was very informative. I asked a lot of questions because number one, when I took the Iowa test of basic skills, I skipped the graphs. Okay. One of the things that we've had most recently in conversation is zoning changes to neighborhoods. And I always look at that really carefully, because the presumption is that something is going to be a piece of commercial property and therefore worth more. And then that small home, that more modest home that's located either at the site or adjacent to it, disappears. And so I have tried to make the case that we should look carefully when we decide to zone something. And I think you described, was it Barb that talked about Haynes Avenue or 5th Street? I think we have to be very cautious about that myself, because it's cheaper to keep something that we already have than to try to build it someplace else in that same range. And so I do think as we move forward with future land use in our community and zoning just generally, we have to look cautiously when something is going to be changed zoning wise, if it removes or potentially removes houses of smaller of square footage. And in keeping with that, one of the things that Patty and I spent a lot of time with was this 20-minute at the Green Cities Conference in Portland. We talked a lot about the 20-minute community. And you yourself were describing that, the community that has a grocery store, some offices. Right now, homeowners are very cautious. They're afraid when something like a grocery store moves into their neighborhood. They're afraid it's going to devalue their home. And so then those are the homeowners that decide, oh, well, this neighborhood's going down, we're going to move. So then they sell. So then you lose that nice quality, responsible owner. And I think that is problematic. And so do you all have suggestions between the three of you, or at least as the conversation moves forward in the future, how do we educate people to make them realize that having some of these, that there is an appropriate mix? Because I heard you talking about mixed, Barb, and it isn't just mix of sizes of houses, it's also maintaining a mix of rental and owner-occupied, because so as we move forward, I hope there'll be more conversations about how people can learn that this changes to this mixed use isn't a negative, that then causes those responsible that's the wrong word, who are concerned about the value of their home and losing the value of their home, and so then they decide to sell now rather than wait 5 years when they think it'll be worth less. And I've been really thrilled along Haynes Avenue in the northern part of our community, the changes to those neighborhoods that have been positive, and the city, I think, has been supportive of a number of the things that we, in our view, enhance that neighborhood. And so I do think we all need to do a better job of educating ourselves to the fact that these mixed uses and mixed of a whole variety of things are not a negative, those are a positive. And our community needs to understand that so that we do as you suggest, preserve some of those things. And so I certainly will look at this information carefully and try to understand it, even though it's not my strong suit. But this is good information that does, so I hear you say what you're using in terms of development decisions that are being made as to what houses they're made, but I also think that we as a community can look at how do we assure that those neighborhoods continue to be treasured at whatever income and level is there, because they're all important to families. I watched last night a program about Billings, Montana, and it was about the changes that have occurred in their houses and all these homes that got bulldozed, and those are things we have to watch for cautiously, and I think we have to do a much better job of educating our community that the value of a mixed neighborhood is really good.
Thank you, Karen. Next, I'll recognize Vice President Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just, I think sometimes when we say mixed use, we think about just existing, but, just give for an example, the St. Joe project that is seemingly moving forward downtown across the street from Tally's. There could be condos there could be retail there, and there are apartments within 20 minutes of that downtown. So that's a mixed-use community right there within 20 minutes, that we're not just talking about preserving what's already there, but creating something that's new. I think the current administration, the Obama administration, has started to try to change that conversation and thinking for handing out federal dollars to say that if you're not thinking about solving problems from a housing and energy and a transportation network, then maybe you're going to receive less federal dollars than others who are thinking about that. So it's not just a matter of housing, but it's a matter of transportation. If the housing that is affordable, that we say is affordable, is outside of Rapid City, but people work all the way across Rapid City, that's not helping. That's not helping the situation if people don't have transportation and we don't have a public transportation network that will get people from X to A to B or wherever. So I think some of that is naturally occurring, that dollars are so tight today that when we start to think, or when people start to think about how to spend federal dollars, state dollars, local dollars, that you're going to have to meet more than one need to solve a problem. And I think that's happening, and it's happening right downtown, I think. There's a grocery store downtown Rapid City now that people who live downtown can walk to the grocery store. I think that's one of the most things that I'm saddened about. We live in an area, personally speaking now, that my son has never walked to the grocery store. I walk to the grocery store every day in Chicago. It was a block away. But I'm not going to send my son down the hill 1.5 miles to the grocery store. That's where we've chosen to live. But as we think about developing communities, I think you're right. We need to think about putting some of those things in. Dry cleaners, and I think people will start to feel some of that as they better see the uses of some of these things. And 20 minutes can be pretty far away in terms of a walk or a bike ride or however you choose to get there.
Thank you, Malcolm. Joy, you sparked some great conversation, didn't you? And I'm going to add on to it because I'm pretty proud of my neighborhood. We get and I'll just kind of explain when these guys are talking about mixed use. In the area that I live, the housing ranges from on the bottom closer to Haynes, anywhere from 60 to 80,000, up to townhouses, where you're getting up to the 100,000 range. Further back, you're getting up to the 200,000 to 280,000 range, all in that one small area. So you got the mixed, I've always joked, because I lived down at the bottom of the hill at the 60,000. Now I live on the top part now, so you can work your way up as you go. So I'm very proud of that. But we also have, you know, he talks about a convenience store, grocery store that just opened up not far from the neighborhood in a park, and so people are walking around that area too. But I know you probably didn't expect this type of conversation when you gave your report, but the council, I think, they're very into smart growth and the workforce housing, and so you'll see they're very receptive to anything you have to say towards that. So, thank you.
Just to chime in just one little bit, you were talking about the neighbors walking around, and through our experience of doing block clubs and getting residents engaged with each other, what they found is that they really thought they knew their neighborhood till they start walking their neighborhood, and then they really started engaging with the other residents in that neighborhood, and it builds that sense of community, and they really find out that they're all there for the same common goal of home ownership and bettering their community and being part of their community. So walking, and really when you can engage the residents and encourage the residents to be, know their neighbor, builds healthy neighborhoods.
Yes, it does. Yeah, one of our people down the street does a block party every year. And the way they do it is they get a piece of wood and hang it on people's doors. And so I'm serious. I just wanted to pass that. All right. Well, is there no further questions? Thank you, guys. Okay. So we
Again,
just-
and I would just like to remind you that this study was compliments of Black Hills Vision,
Yes.
and we have a hard copy and the full copies on our website. Okay?
Thank you, Joy and Tara.
Thank you.
Need a motion to adjourn? There's been a motion to adjourn, seconded. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, motion carries. Thank you.